So turns out last video, I wasn't lying. I have strep throat, and I don't feel so good. I'm telling you, dude, it was the decision to shave my goatee. It's a fact. Worst decision of my life. But regardless, we're here for the people today, and I'm gonna tell you the best NFL player for this 2019 upcoming season on each and every NFL team. And if you think I get your favorite team's best player wrong, let me know in the comments by calling me a moron. I expect to see a lot of comments that simply just say moron. And this video was inspired by LNU and Draft Mark. They both made a very similar video to this for the NBA and MLB, so I was like, screw it, let me be the one to do it for the NFL. There will be a link to their channels in the description box below. But starting off in the AFC East with the Miami Dolphins, Xavier Howard. This one's pretty tough. Didn't know if I should go with him or Kenny Stills, but Xavier Howard, he gets the nod for the best player for the Miami Dolphins. New York Jets, this also was a tough one, but I decided to go with the newcomer, Le'Veon Bell, over Jamal Adams. And this was a tough one because Jamal Adams is more of a sure thing because Le'Veon Bell hasn't played in a year, but at the same time, this guy, arguably the best running back in the NFL. So in this predicament, you have to go with the player who is arguably the best at his position in the NFL. So Le'Veon Bell slightly gets the nod over Jamal Adams. Buffalo Bills, another tough one, but I went with the veteran Jerry Hughes, coming off one of the best seasons of his career. Seems like this guy's getting better with age. There's a couple of guys I could have gone with, maybe Micah Hyde, Tre'Davious White, the youngster, but I am going to give the nod to the veteran Jerry Hughes since he's coming off, like I said, such a huge season at the defensive end position. New England Patriots, and this was a tough one, but I'm going to go with Julian Edelman, one of the most underrated players in the NFL, and the reigning Super Bowl MVP. Would have probably gone to Gronk, but he retired. But I have to give this one to Julian Edelman. Now on to the AFC North, the Cleveland Browns. And before I give you the Browns' best players, yep, it was a joke. That was a joke, and I think that's understood collectively. So it was a joke. It was a joke. And I wanted to give it a second to make it seem like it wasn't a joke, but it was a joke. Obviously, Tom Brady was best player for the Patriots. Now the Cleveland Browns, we're going to go with newcomer Odell Beckham Jr., arguably one of the best receivers in the NFL. And the Browns have a ton of talented players. You could have maybe even gone with Myles Garrett. Heck, you probably could have said Baker Mayfield. But Odell Beckham, the most talented player, I believe, on the Cleveland Browns. And I'm freaking sad that my Titans have to play them week 1. Pittsburgh Steelers, Cameron Hayward, the veteran. This one, another tough one. Could have gone with pretty much perennial Pro Bowler David DeCastro, the guard. Could have possibly gone Big Ben, or could have gone Antonio Brown. Oh wait, or maybe even could have gone Le'Veon Bell. But ultimately gonna go with Cameron Hayward. Came off a huge season last year. Baltimore Ravens, Marlon Humphrey, and this was a tough one. Could have gone with newcomer Earl Thomas. Could have gone with defensive tackle Michael Pierce. Marlon Humphrey, one of the best corners in the league, and he's such a young player. I gave the youngster the nod here. Best player on the Ravens. Bengals, Geno Atkins. Veteran defensive tackle. Could have maybe gone with AJ Green, but Geno Atkins being such a consistent player, year in and year out, one of the better defensive tackles in the league and an anchor in the interior of the Cincinnati Bengals defensive line. So you got to go with Mr. Atkins here. AFC South, starting with the Jacksonville Jaguars, we're going to go with Jalen Ramsey. Not coming off a season you'd expect Jalen Ramsey to have, but over the past few seasons, you know what Jalen Ramsey can do. And this is one of those picks that I went more with a complete body of work. And I know maybe Calais Campbell was the best player last season, but I still think most talented player easily, Jalen Ramsey on the Jacksonville Jags. Next, my Tennessee Titans have to go with Kevin Byard. Had an incredible season last year. And Jarrell Casey's another guy you could argue and say one of the best and most consistent players. But as of right now, I think the best player on the Titans is Kevin Byard, an absolute menace in run support for us. Indianapolis Colts, Andrew Luck. Why do I say this? Colts, the previous year, awful. God freaking awful. Andrew Luck comes back from injury, and the Colts make the playoffs. And I thought the Colts weren't even be a 4-win team. That shows you how important Andrew Luck is to this team. Texans. This is such a tough one too. I went with J.J. Watt. Now, a lot of you might say DeAndre Hopkins, and you might be right. but I'm just going to go with J.J. Watt, the veteran. He's a perennial Pro Bowler, one of the best defensive players in NFL history. And just for that reason alone, I'd feel wrong not picking J.J. Watt here, but you have a strong argument if you did want to say DeAndre Hopkins. On to the AFC West, Denver Broncos, Von Miller. And I think this one's just pretty simple. It's Von freaking Miller. Who else could it be? Maybe Chris Harris, but not. It's freaking Von Miller. Oakland Raiders, Antonio Brown. Now, he might have proved himself the past few months to be a moron, but doesn't mean he's one of the best, if not the best receiver in the NFL. Antonio Brown, best player on the Oakland Raiders. Kansas City Chiefs, Pat Mahomes. It's the MVP. I know he's really only had one great year in the NFL, but still, you can't say the reigning MVP is not the best player on a team. So Kansas City Chiefs best player, Pat Mahomes. You got guys like Justin Houston, Travis Kelce as well, but it's freaking Pat Mahomes. LA Chargers, Desmond King. This is one I feel like a lot of Chargers fans are going to be mad at me for. Desmond King, I believe, was the best corner in the NFL last year. Either him or Stephon Gilmore. Obviously, you got your Joey Bosa's and your Phillip Rivers and your Keenan Allens. But I think Desmond King, best player. He's still young, too. So I think he's the best player for the 2019 LA Chargers. Now on to the NFC, starting with the NFC East. Philadelphia Eagles, Fletcher Cox. Probably the best defensive tackle in the league. And if you're the best at your position, more than likely you're going to be the best player on your team. As that is going to be Fletcher Cox. Dallas Cowboys, Zach Martin. Ooh, this might ruffle some feathers. You have your Zeke lovers, DeMarcus Lawrence lovers, maybe even Leighton Vander Esch. But Zach Martin has been such a consistent Pro Bowl caliber player for the Cowboys. So Zach Martin, arguably the best guard in the league, maybe even the best offensive lineman in the league, best player on the Cowboys. Washington Redskins. This was a tough one, dog. There was like 5 different players you possibly could have picked. But I went with Trent Williams, one of the 2 Pro Bowlers coming off of last season, either him or Ryan Kerrigan. But Trent Williams, another guy, kind of more of a body of work type fella, has been such a consistent anchor for that Redskins offensive line. So Trent Williams, best player on the Redskins. And New York Giants, Saquon Barkley. Not many players to pick from here, but Saquon Barkley, you know this man's going to be a star, maybe even a Hall of Fame type career. Reigning Rookie of the Year, gotta be Saquon Barkley, one of the lone shining spots from this New York Giants team last year. And obviously his pick was a lot easier with Odell Beckham going to the Browns, so Saquon Barkley, the best player on the Giants. NFC North, Minnesota Vikings, Adam Thielen. Could have been Harrison Smith, but Adam Thielen definitely solidified himself as probably a top 5 receiver in the NFL. I think easily the best player on the Vikings offense. Harrison Smith, maybe Danielle Hunter, but I'm rocking with Adam Thielen. Detroit Lions, Damon Harrison, Mr. Snacks. A former New York Giant, another player that got traded from the Giants, had an incredible year with the Detroit Lions. So we're going with Mr. Snacks as the Lions' best player. Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers, and this one's just obvious. Like, that's all I have to say. Makes this easier to edit. I don't have to say anything else. Chicago Bears, Khalil Mack. Once again, it's just simple enough. Khalil Mack may be the best player in the whole entire league, so obviously the best player on the Bears. The Bears have a ton of good players. Eddie Jackson, Mr. Fuller, and a bunch of other incredible players, but Khalil Mack, easily the best player on the team. Now on to the NFC South, starting with the New York Saints, and this video might honest to God be less than 10 minutes with some of these short explanations, but it's Drew Brees. That's just obvious. Michael Thomas, once Drew Brees retires, will be the best player on the team more than likely, but it is Drew Brees, and it's just like not right to say it otherwise. Carolina Panthers, Luke Kuechly. Christian McCaffrey's working his way up there in the discussion, but it's got to be Mr. Luke Kuechly on the Panthers. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Mike Evans. Could say Levante David, the veteran outside linebacker, but nah, Mike Evans, one of the lone bright spots in this team from last season. And Atlanta Falcons, Mr. Julio Jones. Got some arguments for some guys maybe like Deion Jones, maybe a Desmond Trufant, maybe even Matt Ryan, but you just have to go with Mr. Julio Jones here. Now on to the NFC West, Seattle Seahawks, Bobby Wagner. The best middle linebacker, arguably, in the whole entire league. Gotta go with him here. Russell Wilson obviously has a huge argument. Just signed a contract that made him the highest paid player in league history. But Bobby Wagner's just too good not to be the best player on his own team. Now, LA Rams, Aaron Donald. Just like Khalil Mack, I think Aaron Donald or Khalil Mack is one of the 2 best players in the league, like 1A, 1B. They're the same. They're both extremely good. So he's the best player on the Rams, and there's just no argument there. Arizona Cardinals, Patrick Peterson. I mean, coming off of last season, I mean, there's nobody else to pick. And last but not least, San Francisco 49ers, George Kittle. One of the most surprising breakout stars from last season. You have guys like Richard Sherman that you could pick, but George Kittle was too good last year to not be named the best player on the 49ers.